Hi, 5, Evil Upbeat Network, YouTube. We're checking out some of the others on that. Lots of interesting stuff. Riverside is going to try to spring residents, not only extending the sales tax, which isn't expected to expire for 11 years, they're going to add 25% more to the sales tax. Riverside, you're absolutely stupid if you vote for this in June. We'll get into that in a little bit. Get on the Roy plan. The Democrats are getting even every day more nervous. The Roy plan is going to work, and the top two coming out of the California primary for governor are going to be Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton. We'll give you the latest updates on that. But, as we said, lead story of the day. Taxpayers are paying for security to protect little KAMALAS HINNEY. Little Miss Richie over there, who was vice president, now we're paying who knows how many millions to protect former Vice President Kamala Harris. Here is the KCRA report from the great Ashley Zavala. Here we go.
Have been and continue to pay for the former vice president's security detail. Dozens of California Highway Patrol officers have been traveling with her in and out of the state and in some cases the country for her book tour. Everyone we spoke to for this story acknowledged the intense political moment we're in right now and the threats facing her and people in both political parties. But we're asking the question, don't taxpayers deserve to know how their money is being used? With several...
We can answer that question very succinctly. No, you're not. Here's more. Here we go.
Stops left on her nationwide book tour, Vice President Kamala Harris continues to use California Highway Patrol officers as her personal security. Multiple sources unauthorized to speak publicly about security matters told KCRA3 she has dozens of officers that have been traveling with her for nearly 6 months and counting. The long list of stops have included cities across the country, plus London and Ontario. The tour continues through California this month before stops in South Carolina.
That's not Ontario, California. That's Ontario, Canada. She's got plenty of money to pay for this. She's on a book tour. She's worth gazillions, along with her goofy husband and her fruitcakey stepdaughter. Story for a different day. Don't you just love this stuff? Here we go.
North Carolina and Georgia. She's promoting her book, 107 Days, a memoir about her brief campaign for president after Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 race. Governor Gavin Newsom's office, which ultimately approved the protection, said it does not comment on security arrangements. State officials won't provide specifics or say how much it's costing. Sources tell us there are still credible threats against her.
Do you have a sense of how much this could be costing taxpayers?
All I know is it's a lot. It is a significant amount of money.
Retired California Highway Patrol.
Of course it's a significant amount of money. Who the hell knows how much we're paying to protect her? They're doing it because she was Attorney General at one time. That was 10 years ago. And we're paying for that? For her to gallivant all around the country to make God... Who's idiot enough to buy that book, like Newsom's, that's just to finance their presidential aspirations? And we're paying for the security? Balderdash, we're absolute frickin' idiots here in California. Hopefully, here we go.
Patrol officer and Republican Assemblyman Tom Lackey said state law allows for her protection because she served as California's Attorney General.
We're living in kind of an unstable environment right now.
No, we can torch anybody we want, as we've just proven. Ask Mr. Maduro. Well, you can't ask the Ayatollah because he's at room temperature. This stuff is absolute 100% lunacy more from Tom Lackey.
Now. And so it's really hard to predict circumstances and people's behavior, and so she deserves that kind of protection. But where the slippery slope starts to show up is the personal gain aspect.
No, I didn't think I disagree with Tom Lackey. She does not deserve any taxpayer-funded protection. Period. End of freaking story. Tom. I like Tom. He votes most of the way right, but this one is not no, but hell freaking no. No way are we going to tolerate this kind of crap. Or we should. She can pay for her own damn security like everybody else does. She ain't a pauper.
Right? When someone's making an opportunity to make money, should they be provided that same protection at taxpayer expense?
The public obviously is entitled to know what the cost of that CHP personnel is.
Adjunct McGeorge School of Law professor and longtime California lobbyist Chris McCaley said former state elected officials don't typically get this kind of protection, including former governors.
I think.
Yeah. Where's Jerry Brown? Where's any of them? Gray Davis, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Should we be paying for his security? And they're governors. They're doing it because she was Attorney General of California 10 years ago? Are we going to cover all insurance commissioners, Secretary of States for 87 million years? This is insane. No wonder at $350 almost billion for a state budget, they're almost out. They're running a deficit on that just because of these stupid policies. This is probably costing us $3 or $4 million a year. I kid you not. And that's probably low. I don't know. Let's play the rest of the report.
Folks have to examine the precedent being set, but when it comes to is it the right thing to do, yes, but how much it is costing taxpayers, that they should.
No, it is not the right thing to do. Absolutely, positively, 1,000% no. No way, no how.
No.
I reached out to the former vice president for comment and more information on all of this. Again, sensitive to the security situation, but I asked her spokesperson about the costs associated with all of the travel for those dozens of officers and if she's reimbursing the state for any of these expenses with the money she's making on that book tour. We are still waiting for a response. We would also be remiss.
Oh, you're going to wait a long time, Ashley, for a response on that if we're getting reimbursed, because you know the answer is 111% positively. Absolutely no. There's no way on God's green earth that we're getting reimbursed. I can't even say it. I'm so damn pissed off. There is absolutely no way we're getting reimbursed for any of this. I don't know. If we've completely lost our minds.
If we didn't mention that California has been grappling with back-to-back budget shortfalls, right, and every penny should be accounted for.
You think that number should be made available for everyone. So where's the federal government on this right now? Excuse me. And does any of this have to do with President Trump revoking her security privileges?
Sure, and it depends on who you ask about this. Former vice presidents under law typically get 6 months of federal protection once they're out of office. Before leaving office, President Joe Biden quietly extended Harris's protection to July of 2026. A source in the Trump administration told us instead they allowed an extra 3 months for Vice President Kamala Harris before cutting that off in September.
I mean, we know that also, you know, security for...
So the feds only go 6 months on a vice president and then cut it off. Trump, well, Biden tried to go 2 years or a year and a half. Trump gave her an extra 3 months. And then we, the state of California, are picking up security for her. This is beyond ridiculousness and unbelievable and any other adjective you can come up with. Man, the stupidity we come up with is absolutely freaking stunning.
For lawmakers and people, high-profile people in the state has also been a really big topic as well here.
Right. This is a topic of discussion, one that might be opened up because of this, but we'll see.
All right. Ashley, thank you so much.
Man, what an idiotic state of affairs we have gotten ourselves into. It's, again, like I said, ridiculous, stupid, beyond foobarred. I don't know. The Roy plan better work, or they'll completely bust our ass. They'll take every frickin' dime we got. Speaking of that, Democrats are in a tizzy, tailspin, panicking over the California governor's race. All the people a year ago told me I was stupid, idiot, didn't know what I was talking about when I said, hey, Republicans can win the California governorship in November of 2026. They're going to win it in June. They get two candidates, split their 40% 2020, and you get a bunch of Democrats to run, and you hold them below 20%, voila, the choice is going to be two Republicans. In this race, it's going to be Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton, and we've got the 10 dwarfs, and they're not pulling out. Even the Paul Mitchell went up from 25%, 1 in 4, to 33%, 1 in 3. The two Republicans will come out of that. I told you I was at 50% plus and rising. It's rising every day. Here's Ed Lasco's report.
California governor is heating up, and tonight the state's Democratic Party chair has a bold message for some candidates. Step aside. But could this shakeup actually change who makes it to the November ballot? Let's go live to Fox 11's Ed Lascos in West LA with more tonight. Ed.
Marla, locked out is the big concern as you're talking about it there with the leadership of the California Democratic Party, especially when it comes for the race for governor. You know how it works, right? When you talk about the primary coming up early June, in our state we have an open primary, which means candidates from all different parties compete against each other. The top two vote getters there, if they don't get over 50%, then you have the top two vote getters. They wind up facing each other in the general election for governor. That comes up in November. But if you look at the numbers now, you look at the polls, it would suggest that perhaps the top two vote getters could both be Republicans and not one Democrat on that November ballot. Watch.
Before we get to Ed Lasco's report, we have brand new polling numbers out. There you go. Chad Bianco, number 1, tied with Steve Hilton, number 2, perfectly splitting the Republican percentage right down the middle. That's a Tony Villar internal report, Antonio Villaraigosa, which has got him at 7%. All of them are signing up. We'll get to more of this here in a sec. Let's get more to the Ed Lascos report. Here we go.
I'm a no gimmicks, no nonsense, straight shooter.
The fight to become California's next governor and the bombshell developments that now threaten to lock out any Democrat from the November general election.
is this?
You gotta love Ed Alaskos. He may be the best reporter. He's definitely, without question, the best, I believe, reporter in the biz. At least for this kind of stuff. Nobody creates excitement like Ed Alaskos.
Small chance, but if it did happen, I think so many people think that it would be so catastrophic that they are trying to do everything they can to avoid it.
That warning comes as
There you see Paul Mitchell, who's up to 1-3 now on his little computer dealie. There was only 1-8, last week? Now it's up to 1-3. Oh, please. We love Psycho Chick Katie Porter. She's making the Roy plan work to perfection. Here we go.
the voter data just doesn't add up for Democrats in the gubernatorial race, and it now has the top of the state's Democratic Party reeling.
It's just a math problem, and it might be this kind of worst case scenario for Democrats.
Doing the math, stay with me now. The Republican vote is usually 40%, meaning the top two candidates leading the polls now, Steve Hilton and Sheriff Chad Bianco, would split that vote about 20% each. The remaining 60% would go to the Democrats, but it is a vote that's split through a crowded field of candidates.
Say 8 candidates are splitting up that 60%. I think just you can think about that or visualize it, that, oh, it's going to be hard for any of those candidates potentially to get to more than 20% to beat those Republicans.
There you heard it from the great Paul Mitchell. Draw the Prop 50 map. Telling you that, and not one of them seem to be dropping out. Of the 10, I thought 2 or 3 would drop out and not put their names on the ballot. They were having a cat fight last night. Accused, hey, you drop out. No, you drop out. I ain't dropping out. They're all filing. Heck, all 10 of the major candidates that got funding and name recognition on the Democratic Party are going to run. That's what's got Paul Mitchell and the Democratic Party in a tailspin tither like they've never been before.
Beat those Republicans.
That has the leader of the California Democratic Party pulling a preemptive strike, calling on his candidates to take, quote, an honest assessment of your candidacy and campaign. If you do not have a viable path to make it to the general election, do not file to place your name on the ballot for the general election.
You know what the 10 Democrats running said? F you, Rusty Hicks. We're running. And there ain't nothing you can do to stop us, babe.
That from the party chairman, Rusty Hicks, and it's already getting backlash from one of the candidates, Tony Thurmond, blasting his own party leadership, posting this on X.
The California Democratic Party is essentially telling every candidate of color in the race for governor to drop out. Instead, all white candidates to stay in the race. To me, this act doesn't reflect the Democratic Party of 2026. Aren't we supposed to be the party who embraces democracy?
I've told you, those who shout racist are the biggest racist. They are the only racist. And the Democratic Party is racist. The head chair of the Democratic Party is getting called out. One time I agree with terrible Tony Thurmond, our disaster of a state superintendent. Finally said something right. Yeah, your party, Tony. You, and you're getting the racism you've tried to pimp, not only in the schools with the gender bending and all the other stuff. You get what you deserve, Tony. And I hope Chad and Steve stuff it right up all 10 of you Democrat lion sacks of ish's ass.
Now live, high political drama playing out, especially this week because we have the big deadline coming up this Friday. It's the deadline for the candidates to file for their candidacy. Most already have. They're expected to do so, and that's important because even though as we get closer to that primary early June, they could drop out, they could end their candidacy, but their name would still be on the ballot. And Marla, as we know in the past, historically, even though somebody may have dropped out, their name's on the ballot, they still get votes, and that's a further problem for the Democrats because it splits that vote count among that wide open field of.
Who brought you that first? You're looking at him right here, and that's not Ed Lascos. Good old Roy, a year ago. Call me Karnak the Magnificent, and I don't know if this is going to work, but just the fact in the last week, it started bubbling a little bit at the first of the year. People were going, well, you know, this might happen. The last week, Democrats are running around like their hair is on fire and their ass is a-catching, to quote the great late Charlie Daniels.
Candidates that they have all running for governor.
Great point, Ed. So we heard from Tony Thurmond, and then also, who hasn't been quiet about this, is Antonio Villaraigosa.
Yeah, he was out posting on social media talking about wanting some of the candidates to drop out as well. But again, when you talk to Paul Mitchell, he was saying, you know, it's really balancing the numbers. You could go one candidate could attack another candidate. But he made a good point, I thought, Mr. Mitchell, when he says, looking at all the data, it really, you have to start pulling several candidates down to try to bring up that vote count. But if you just kind of target one case, it really may not make that much of a difference.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
So there you have the Ed Lascos report from Fox 11, and there it is. And he's even saying, and Paul Mitchell saying, you know, even if they do, and at 5 o'clock Friday is the last day you have to either sign up or pull your name off the ballot. If you're qualified and ready to go, which all of them seem to be, they're all posting on their X accounts and whatever. Hey, we're signing in. Sheriff Chad was. Steve Hilton did yesterday. Betty Yee, Tony Thurmond, all of them, Villaraigosa, Psycho Chick Porter, Spy Swalwell. It's going to be, let's say, a glorious time. Tom Waite from CBS 2 cornered Gavin Newsom about the fires and stuff, and yeah, that Nimrod, Janice Canonas, resigned. It is going to screw up the water system in Puerto Rico. But he caught Gavin Newsom yesterday where they're trying to explain away how he and Janice Canonas and Buffoon Bass and the crew burnt Pacific Palisades and Altadena to the frickin' ground. But this is what Tom asked him about, this ever-exasperating situation for him and the Democrats, but maybe the savior of the people of California. Here we go.
The National Guard.
Governor Newsom's stop in the Palisades comes on the heels of his cross-country tour, promoting his new memoir and raising his national profile. But another political drama is playing out here. Who will replace Newsom? Tuesday, the chair of California's Democratic Party sent out what some might say is an SOS, a warning that too many Democrats could be diluting the field, which means in California's top two primary, the Democrats could be locked out.
And right now, you have just 2 Republican candidates, and you've got so many Democratic candidates, and it's just a percentage game. And as a consequence of that, the more there are, with a fixed number of likely voters within that pool to choose, this could be a problem.
This could be a problem. From Gulag Gavin Newsom. One of the few politicians I've never met is Gulag Gavin. I bet one day he's going to come to hate me because we're using the tools they gave us to hopefully kick their ass on June 2nd.
I'm not putting my thumb on anything at the moment.
I'm not putting my thumb on anything at the moment, he says. Because you don't care about California. You're running for president. You only got, 10 more months in office? People don't care. You have no political clout, or very little political clout in California, buddy boy. And you and your ilk may be losing your grip on the once golden state, California, and maybe we will return it. Let's get back to the Tom Waite report. report.
At the moment.
We, of course, asked Governor Newsom about his potential plans for a 2028 presidential run. He would not answer. He just gave us a smile, shook our hand, and the interview ended. Reporting from the Palisades.
You know, why do you got to be disingenuous, Gav? Everybody knows you're running for president. So why not just come out and say it? Hey, I'm in. F you, California. But that would require a scintilla of integrity and conscience. Which most Democratic politicians and leaders do not have. Not saying Republicans are that much better. Nikki Lorenzo, who runs Inside California Politics and the show on that, put this tweet up from Javier Baccaria. To Hicks, the Dem chair, saying, oh, you got to drop out of that. He said he's filing tomorrow and in it to win. Like Betty Yee, Tony Thurman, Antonio Villaraigosa. And is Tony Thurman right? Are the Democrats totally racist? They only want the white candidates in there. Psycho Chick Porter, Spy Swalwell, Modigo Mahan. It's going to be an absolute fabulous. It's going to be an S show. If all 10 of them that are signed up and they're going to run and they're going to be on the ballot and they got money, all of them got plenty of campaign funds. This is going to be one heck of a run. It's going to be one for the ages. Ashley Zvala just put this up. California Democratic Party chair, lower polling candidates consider dropping out of the governor's race, lower polling candidates. There's Betty Yee. I filed my campaign papers, F you Hicks. Antonio Villaraigosa officially, and they don't like Asians either. Betty Yee's out. I think Tony Thurman may be onto this. They don't like blacks or browns. There's Javier Baccaria with his hand up, swearing in for and signing up to run for governor. Matt Mahan. So, I don't think it ain't working, Hicks. And I highly suggest Hicks, Newsom, Pelosi, Corey Jackson, Baby Jesus. Don't pay attention to the ditch bank Okie from Edgemont. And you will do so at your own peril. And maybe we're going to know in June. Maybe we'll have the last laugh on this whole ordeal. This is not a laughing matter, but this is how the Democrats have been winning. That's why I say they're racist crooks. $1 billion that went on this AB 32 climate change crap. Almost all of it, over $900 million according to Cal Doge. When cash was diverted to political campaigns, get out the vote, ballot harvesting. Your California tax dollars have been used to elect Gulag Gavin Newsom and the supermajority in the legislature and the Betty Yees and Javier Baccarias and stupid Kamala Harris and Psycho Chick Katie Porter and Spy Swalwell who sold out the United States and on and on. This is the California USAID where we uncovered that. Well, the Trump administration did. That was another slush fund they were using nationally to elect him. They're using the climate fraud to pull a voter fraud on you. California High-Speed Rail CEO Ian Chaudhry set to return to work following that investigation where he was arrested in a domestic incident. This guy can spend a gazillion of your dollars. $20 billion they spent on that stupid high-speed rail. And laid 2 feet of track. Like I said, we could have built a 4-lane freeway from LA to San Francisco. 4 lanes each way. New. For what it costs us to lay 2 feet of track that the bullet train can, of conventional track for a conventional train that the bullet train can't even run on. So, utterly mind-boggling. And he's going to be back on the job, according to Ashley Zavala in her report tomorrow. It's Alberto Cavallo. Where's he at? LAUSD president. He's been put on leave. We didn't see him for 2 days. Now, that Janice Quinones, or whatever the hell her name is, LAWD, Department of Water and Power, was paid $750,000 to burn down the frickin' Pacific Palisades. Only reason Bass doesn't want be asking any questions. Well, how'd you let this chick in here burn no waters in the reservoir for the fire trucks? So we'll sweep this problem off to Puerto Rico. Again, the Democrats are racist. Let's burn the blacks and browns down in Puerto Rico. They don't count. We'll starve them and we'll make Puerto Rico an Oklahoma Dust Bowl. It's absolutely, well, sometimes mind-numbing. Just to touch on the fraud, former Lieutenant Governor Abel Maldonado on Voz News, the fraud that's happening in Minnesota is nothing compared to the fraud in California. Abel Maldonado. And he's the one that brought you Prop 13. He was a Republican when he was on the Assembly or Senate.
30 seconds.
That switched his vote that got the top 2 primary in. That may elect a Republican as governor, as we pointed out. As you've heard Jesse say, we'll be on the Mighty Met 1490 here in a few seconds. Hopefully Susan Shelley will call in. We'll get her thoughts on some of this stuff. And hopefully much, much more. But who knows? It'll be fun.
5 seconds, and Susan's on the line.
But will it be real fun?
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
That funky side guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the form of today and band. Join your vast video audience in the UFB Network, YouTube, working on some of the other ones on that. Man, what a day! We're paying, who knows? California is paying for highway patrol security for Kamala Harris to go and book her to run for president. How stupid are we in California allowing that? The Roy plan is working to perfection. Paul Mitchell's deal is up to 1 in 3. He's admitting to it, and Democrats are panicking all over the state. And it looks like all 10 of them are going to be well name recognized Democrats, well funded, at least enough to put up a credible campaign. And they have no superstar candidate. Like I said yesterday, my numbers are 50% plus. Paul Mitchell of Prop 50 drawing that fame is up to 1-3. A week ago he was 1-8. And it's even looking worse if none of them drop out. And Friday, I think at 5 o'clock is the last they have to do. They've all said, we're in it to win it. It's going to be an absolute fabulous. It's going to be an interesting campaign. And you know what? I think we might win this deal here in Cal. I think we might win it in June. We'll see of that. Ian Caldray, or whatever the hell his name is, who was arrested, head of the absolute con job of the high-speed rail, is going to be back on the job tomorrow. So I guess, we haven't been hosed enough on that. We've got to we got to grab our ankles harder. I got to laugh about that, because if I didn't, I would cry, and that would not look good on the video cast. But as we usually do on a Wednesday, we have the famed editorial writer, columnist for the Press Enterprise, San Bernardino Sun, Inlay Daily Bulletin, Redlands Daily Facts, more important to me, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, Susan Shelley. Welcome to Newswire, Roy.
Thank you, Roy. Great to be with you.
Just to touch on the governor's thing, man, the Democrats are panicked. My plan might work. What do you say, Susan?
Oh, I am loving this. This is so wonderful, because obviously all the behind-the-scenes conversations did not produce the results that the Democrat leadership wanted, and so they had to go public with their letter calling on them to get out of the race, and then everybody reacted by rushing to the window to file their papers. I just thought it was wonderful. And then on top of everything else, it turns out that the low-polling Democrats are all ethnic minorities, and the top-polling Democrats are all white, so the whole thing looked racist. It was beautiful to behold. The Democrats are just imploding. It's wonderful.
I want to touch on something because your columns deal with the high-speed rail, and I want to get with that. But you put something up on the X machine of that Chevron, which once was the biggest company located in California, as far as that goes, until the tech thing went crazy, but they've since moved on. But they're still, I think, the biggest oil and gas refiner left, or it's going to be. They just put a letter to the California Air Resources Board saying these stupid regulations you're coming are basically going to wind up almost closing the seven refineries we got left. What say you, Susan?
This is very serious stuff. We have this idiotic cap-and-trade program now called Cap and Invest. The courts said in 2017 that it's not a tax because if businesses don't want to pay it, they can go out of business. So therefore it's voluntary, so therefore it's not a tax. And the money from cap and trade is building the bullet train, $1 billion a year. It was supposed to expire in 2030. It has been renewed in a trailer bill, one of those quick and dirty trailer bills they do in Sacramento. It was renewed through 2045 to keep your prices high in California. And now the California Air Resources Board is doing one of their periodic updates of the regulation to decide how many of these permits they're going to have, because the idea of the cap is you have fewer permits, and that's how you reduce greenhouse gas. The trouble is, it makes electricity prices go up, and it makes gasoline prices go up when they do this, because the whole thing is premised on making fossil fuels unaffordable, and that's how they intend to reduce greenhouse gases. Well, the legislature is very upset because people are not able to pay for this stuff, and they might vote for a Republican governor. Who knows? That's how upset they are. So there's this big fight going on in the California Air Resources Board over how many of these permits they're going to give away to the utilities in order to try and keep the price of electricity lower. And Chevron is saying, we've looked at this regulation, we see what you're doing, it is the end of civilization as we know it. And they said it is a national security risk because of the various military installations of the aircraft, aviation fuel, transportation fuel. It is a national economic and national security risk, as well as a problem for California consumers. And Chevron has, I think, 2 refineries left, and they could close them, and they could leave. And that's a big deal.
1,111% on that. I mean, gas is what, before the war thing started, gas went up 50 cents a gallon while it went down 10 cents nationwide. Of that's over just 2. The Benicia and the Phillips 66 refinery are closing or will be closing on that. If Chevron and the rest of them say, hey, we're done, that $8 a gallon gas that was predicted by Michigan Company may be a bargain if we keep down this path, Susan.
It absolutely could be, and we could have shortages. And right now we're importing gasoline. We're importing not only oil, but we're importing refined products, gasoline. That's not, what Chevron's letter said is that cannot respond quickly to a supply disruption. If you've got to order it in from over the ocean to bring to the California coast, there could be supply disruptions, shortages. There could be a full-on crisis militarily if we can't get aviation fuel to military aircraft. This is a big problem, and Chevron is warning the governor, warning the legislature, warning the California Air Resources Board. This is not a drill. This is a serious crisis that they are causing with their stupid policy. And really what has to happen is the legislature has to go back to work and repeal this cap-and-trade program because there's no way to make it work. The whole idea is to make fuel unaffordable. And what kind of a crazy policy is that?
Well, hopefully we'll get our act together this year and start not only changing the governorship, but a lot of other political positions. And, with voter ID, if that's on the ballot, say Prop 13, maybe we'll start making some moves in California that will absolutely get us back on that path. But switching gears again, as we say, want to get to one of your columns because I mentioned about the high-speed rail and the chief, or the head guy of there who was arrested is coming back on the job. But the idiocracy of that, but your column this week, the high-speed rails project long bus ride to Los Angeles, Susan Shelley.
Yes, I thought someone should let everyone know that there is no high-speed rail plan to Los Angeles. The plan is to take high-speed rail all the way to Bakersfield and then get on a bus to Los Angeles. And this is in the new business plan. They're talking about what the fare box revenue would be from the bus. They're talking about how much the maintenance costs would be for the bus, what the operation cost would be for the bus. It's a bus. For goodness sake, you can go to the Greyhound website today, and you can get a bus from Bakersfield to Los Angeles 5 times a day. And it's somewhere between $23 and $58, I think, depending on what time of day you go. It takes up to 2 hours and 40 minutes. Do you remember, Roy, when they started this thing with the high-speed rail, the whole trip from San Francisco to Los Angeles was supposed to take 2 hours and 40 minutes. And now that's just a bus ride from Bakersfield.
The idiocracy, again, I don't know how you couldn't have come up with that. If you would have said this is what's going to happen, nobody would believe that it would even be possible. We could be sitting in this in March of 2026, and they're still trying to put a bow on this piece of feces out here, and it's like it's unbelievable, Susan.
It's the craziest thing, and the really bizarre thing is that none of what they're doing is actually legal. Because when the voters approved this whole project in 2008, it had specific legal requirements. And then in 2022, they added more legal requirements. They said, well, there has to be a focus. When we're going to approve all the rest of the bond funds to be spent in 2008. This was just 3-4 years ago. We're going to approve it all to be spent, but it must be spent on the Merced to Bakersfield line, and that includes a station in downtown Merced. Well, now they're trying to edit that so that it's not in downtown Merced. It's going to be about 4 miles south of Merced. Well, that breaks the law. as does the entire thing not going in for 2 hours and 40 minutes from San Francisco to LA. But how do you enforce this? You can go to court and you can say this is not what the voters approved and this violates the law, but you know what? The judges do not care. We've already litigated some of this about the bond funds being spent improperly and the thing not meeting its requirements under the law, and the judges don't care. So we're just off the note. They're just going to spend this money and not get us anything usable at the end of it. Really, the only thing that's going to fix this is a new governor who insists on ending it.
1,000%. Shifting gears again, your other column this week, Supreme Court's decision on tariffs may not matter at all, Susan Shelley.
I thought this was interesting because the reporting on this was, oh, the Supreme Court slapped down Donald Trump and now he can't do tariffs and we have to do refunds. You know what? If you really read the decisions, it's not that clear at all that that's what's going to happen. What's clear is that there was a very fractured decision, and applying this so-called major questions doctrine, which says that the president can only do what Congress has specifically authorized, doesn't necessarily apply in foreign affairs. And Justice Kavanaugh, who wrote a very long dissenting opinion, 65 pages, explains exactly how the president can use all these other laws to impose tariffs. And just today, or maybe it was yesterday, we saw the president say he was going to cut off trade with Spain completely, a complete embargo on Spain. And he turned to the Treasury Secretary. He said, the Supreme Court said I can do that, right? And the Treasury Secretary said, yes, sir. The Supreme Court said you can do a complete embargo. So the truth of this decision is they've really strengthened President Trump because they removed the uncertainty about what he can do. They took away his ability under this one emergency law, but he has all these other tariff powers. He's in a very strong negotiating position. And as he said in the State of the Union, a lot of these countries are going to be glad to keep the deals they have because they know that what I could do to them could be far worse. And I have to tell you, that is a no refunds policy that Ticketmaster would envy.
Oh, man. We got a couple minutes left, but I'm going to give you a little more time to end it all because I think you're going to be out here tomorrow in Mentone Beach with the appearance of that. And, of course, why they should join HJTA Go.
Yes, come and join me tomorrow. I don't even know what time it is. I'm driving and don't have it in front of me. Maybe you have it.
7 o'clock.
But I'm speaking to the Redlands.
7 o'clock's when they start.
7 o'clock at the Mill Creek Cattle Company. Is that the right?
You got it. Yes, the near famous
yes,
Mill Creek Cattle Company. Yes,
a great barbecue restaurant where the brisket is to die for, and the ribs are great. So that's where I'm going to be. 7 o'clock with the Redlands Tea Party Patriots. Come on out. We're going to be talking politics, taxes, Prop 13. It's going to be great. And I believe Gloria Romero is going to be there, too. She's part of the Golden Ticket with Steve Hilton running for lieutenant governor. And so I think we're going to have a great time.
And tell them why they should join HJTA Go.
Because the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is fighting for you in the legislature, in the courts, on the ballot. And it's the best organization in California. And if you join, you strengthen your voice in this state. So cancel the U-Haul. Join the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Go to hjta.org, sign up for the free email alerts, and be a member of this great organization fighting for you. We are going to be saving Prop 13 this year. It's an election year. We're going to be on the ballot in November with an important taxpayer protection initiative. You don't want to miss a minute of this. hjta.org.
Thanks for being on, Susan. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks so much, Roy.
You got it. Susan Shelley, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and columnist extraordinaire for the Southern California News Group. Man, it's like that Chevron deal is going to be, that's a big one. We're down to 7 refineries. What I believe when the last refinery was built, the Benicia plant that just closed down was built 26 years ago, 2000s when it opened up. And that at the time was the biggest plant. Up until this day, that was the biggest refinery we had. I believe we were 50 plus. I think at our peak, we were at 65 refineries in California, but I think we still had about 50 in 26 years ago. Now with the closing of Benicia and Phillips 66, I think here in another month, down in El Segundo, we're going to be down to 7. Chevron, I think, has 2. They have after the Phillips 66 closes, they will have the 2 biggest. If they pull out, and they've already pulled out of California, they pulled their corporate headquarters last year out of California and moved them to Texas. This stuff is critical. If Chevron bails, and they said, just like Phillips 66 and Valero up in Benicia and everybody else that's closed, oil and gas refineries. So the rules and regulations, and you're bleeding us to death with this fraud, the climate change, and all this stuff. We're just saying we're done. You want to pay 8, 10, 20 bucks a gallon for gas? Be our guest. We're not putting up with this crap anymore. Business goes where it can survive. And if you can't make a profit refining a gallon of gas or diesel or jet fuel, or drill for natural gas or sell it, you're going to say, hey, we're done. You're going to do it one way or the other. You're going to pull out before you go bankrupt, or you're going to go bankrupt. It's the reason they're closing. That's basically the short story of what Chevron is saying. That's why they moved their corporate headquarters. They were up there in NorCal, I think Richmond, where they have one plant. They have 2. They have one refinery up there in Richmond. They have one down here in Torrance. And they said, that's what they said. They said, cost of living and everything, and the taxes and everything, we're pulling our headquarters. And again, that was the biggest corporation located in California up until, I think, 10 or so years ago, till the tech companies went crazy. And they're gone. And they actually produce something. What does Meta produce? They produce information. They don't produce a product. And most of them, what does Google produce? What do they manufacture? At least Musk. He bought X, but he made his money with SpaceX and Tesla and things like that. At least he produced something. Most of these tech companies didn't. Some of them did, like Oracle, Ellison, and stuff like that. They did. They had products out there that actually do something. A lot of them didn't. They're just information cogs. It's going to be a very, very, very wild ride. One that's extremely... the roller coaster, they haven't invented a roller coaster ride as nauseating and scary as a roller coaster ride we've created in California the last 30 years. The good news is, man, we have the ability to change it. And hopefully 50% plus one in the state of California coming here in June are going to pull their heads out of their rear ends and finally start making some effective decisions. We got to race here, assembly member. We got to, not only in the governor's race is cool. We got to flip 7 seats. Let's say let's say the Roy plan works in June and we get Steve and Chad in. Okay, that's cool. We got to win 7 assembly seats in the California legislature just to knock it down so they can't veto everything Steve or Chad could put in there. They could override anything with not one Republican vote, unless we win 7 seats in the Assembly and 4 in the Senate. All 80 are up every 2 years in this election. In that, for 20, there's only half of the 40, because they're a 4-year term. State assemblies too, so they're up every 2 years. We have one district, Assembly District 61. It's basically Moreno Valley Paris, San Jacinto, north half of Hemet, Nuevo, all that rural area in there is basically the district. The odious Corey Jackson has represented it almost for 4 years now. We have a shot to put Ed Delgado in, our city councilman, former Riverside County Assistant Sheriff. And that's one of the critical seats. We got to run the tape. We only really got about 7 competitive that we can flip. And it will be easier if Steve and Chad get in. It's going to depress the low propensity Democratic voter, which is going to make this even more plausible. The Senate's going to be more difficult. We need 4. There's really 3 that, you know, you got a reasonable chance of doing. And in both the House and Assembly, there's other ones, but they're going to be much more difficult. So we face a bigger challenge in the Senate to get the 4 out of 20. And it's a bigger percentage. You know, some heavier lifting, but it's got to be done. We only flipped 2 in the Assembly last election, 1 in the Senate, all in Southern California. 2 of the Assembly seats were in the Inland Empire. Even the Senate seat was partially Orange County and Chino, which is part of the Inland Empire. It's going to be an interesting ride. Another one for the U City of Riverside. And I was extremely disappointed in this one. All 7 members of the Riverside City Council decided to not only put the Measure Z sales tax increase on the June ballot, which isn't slated to expire, the 1 cent, 1%, which isn't due to expire, I think, for 11 years, 2037 or 9 years, 2035. They're increasing it 25%. They want to increase it 25% to 1.25%, and they're using the same excuse. Oh, the cops aren't going to come and your house is going to burn down. Hey, they're already burning down. They almost burnt down Hawarden area, which was about the richest area in Riverside because of no fire protection. It was about record amounts of money. The problem is not money. And Riversiders, if you are stupid enough not only to vote for this extension, but add a 25% increase so they can screw you more, you deserve everything you get. I tried calling in, but I couldn't get through in the Zoom meeting. But I was kind of disappointed with the stuff on the Vagrant deal that 4 of the members did vote against, which I give them high praise for. And, you know, throngs of people showed up, even on the other side mostly, but they held firm. Hardly anybody from the public spoke against this. Well, you're going to have a chance to vote on it. And again, we're going to invite them all in. Fertrell, the city manager, the fire chief, police chief, Larry Gonzalez, come on in. Defend it. Give you every opportunity to make your case. I don't know why you're so afraid of the 6th grade educated ditch bank Okie from Edgemont. On top of that, you really owe the people. Not where you're controlling it. You owe them an honest debate and discussion. Not propaganda. Not using our tax dollars to put out mailers saying how you're putting on it as a general tax. You don't have guts enough to put it on a special tax dedicated to police and fire or whatever. Which I've said, you know, here in Moreno Valley, like with the utility tax or the recent sales tax. Hey, if you put it on a special tax dedicated completely to police and fire, I most likely will support it. But you put it in the general slush fund where they can spend it on anything. And even if this council, even if you trust this council, they're not going to be in there, or city manager, they're not going to be there forever. We know that with the Looney Tunes they had down there in Riverside. They cleaned that out. Now we're going back to the same crappy policies of Aaron and the drunk Clarissa who's still on the board and everybody else that got voted out. Fierro and the crew. Well, no, they got new ones in. 2 years later, we're doing the same crap. I don't know. It's make your head spin. Not that, I mean, I guess I know, I mean, I can, in some ways, I sympathize with people who become addicts of drugs or alcohol or something. Sometimes with the way things go, maybe that's the only way you can cope with it. It's really, really exasperating what's going on. We usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
All right. Have a great night.
You got it. Ah.